Anyway.
And I'm eating my cookie. Don't say anything that would like make me not want to eat my cookie no more.
You have a cookie?
Cause peanut butter is really really good.
Mmm.
I know you don't like peanut butter, but it's soft and chewy.
Yeah, fucking out me for not liking peanut butter. Everybody on the show's gonna be like, what?
I think it was the case of overindulged in it too much when she was younger.
It really was, because that's how Nutella was. I might like it now, who knows? But I literally, for like a solid like 3 years, like my number one go to snack was apples and peanut butter, or not apple and Nutella, or peanut butter and Nutella with Cheerios. And like, I think I just got to a point that I'm like, nope, I'm done.
If I remember right, that kind of happened after you got back from your tour of Europe.
Yep. That was
Because
the
you had
Nutella.
basically
That was the Nutella. I
that was
still did peanut
yeah
butter
you
once in a great while, but I was Nutella'd out for years. I literally just finished my first jar of Nutella in like years the other day, and I was doing it with strawberries or with Texas toast style.
see never really got up. I don't like hazelnut, so Nutella doesn't do anything for me.
See, I love hazelnut chocolate, but it was a texture thing for Nutella with me for a while, because literally we bought one of those huge like almost like 2 gallon tubs of Nutella, and they told us like 2 days before we were leaving, you can't take that with you. And we went,
Yeah,
fuck.
he's like, I bet my ass is going in my belly. I'm taking it
So
with me.
it was like 6 of us girls in one room, and we all had these plastic spoons that we had stolen from dinner. And we all sat there and ate Nutella like it was going out of style. And by the time we were done, I'm like, I am fucking over it. I never want to see Nutella again.
Yeah, food burnout's a bitch.
It really is, because yeah, no, that's exactly what happened to me with peanut butter. It's what happened to me with bananas, because I did like bananas for a while, but I got to a point where I was eating them daily, and I finally went, no, I'm done. And now
I
whenever
was
I
gonna
walk
say,
by bananas, I'm like, oh, I fucking hate that smell.
you used to do bananas and Nutella too, because
Mm-hmm.
that was actually pretty good.
Oh my god,
I
that
would
was
partake of a
so
bite or two.
good.
Yeah.
But the
No,
unfortunate
I
thing
was
now
thinking
is that
about
I smell bananas. I'm like, it's like a gag reflex instantly. I'm like,
oh god, I thought somebody was peeking out from behind your chair and it's your fucking chair. You've got your poo thing behind you or something. What is
oh,
that
my
behind you?
poop emoji.
I just saw the eyeballs come around the corner. I'm like, the fuck is looking behind her chair?
You did have a face of horror, because I have you like up next to me. I'm like, the fuck are you looking at?
Look behind me. I'm like, I don't know. I could just see eyeballs. It's not Batman. It's. I think it's a monkey. Maybe a poo
No,
emoji.
it's a
I don't
poop
know,
emoji.
but
It's my poop emoji blanket.
okay. Oh, I could see where the eyeballs, and I'm like, what the fuck is peeking behind Katie? And does she know it's there?
No.
Anyways, yeah. No, I can't do peach stuff. Dad and I just bought a little sampler platter of the 99 proof stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We usually use the banana flavored for our dirty bananas and stuff like that. Well, it has all these different flavors in it. One of them being root beer. That's a hard no go for me.
Oh, hell no.
And peach. And Dad's like, huh, maybe I'll make me a fuzzy navel. I'm like, knock yourself out, man. Because I took a whiff of it. It was like, oh, God, that was so gross. But I'm like, yeah, I'll drink the rest of them. I ain't doing that, though. That was nasty. So,
Oh,
anywho.
shit. But yeah, no, there should be a
Sorry.
drunk
I'm
gaming night coming up soon. So if you're not following already, go follow KREX on twitch.tv, or go follow HS_Flamel at twitch.tv. That is James. And we should be live doing some shenanigans as soon
I
as
was gonna
they're
say you
back
should
home.
really tag them.
I
You
will.
should
I'll
tag
put them
them.
in the show links below.
Put everybody in there so they can get some followers too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well,
Oh
James, I
yeah.
think, is
And then
about to
when I
break 600 followers. I'm getting close to 200 because I'm not as frequent, but we're getting there.
get in there, you gonna make me game with you too? I don't game. I just sit there and watch shit explode, and I can only do it for so long because she literally is one of those spastic go, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god type of
Well, the one that
gamers, and
you
I'm like, okay,
actually
I'm gonna throw up.
really enjoyed,
Hmm.
Little Nightmares 3, is supposed to be coming out this year.
I did like Little Nightmares.
Little
I thought
Nightmares
that
is
one was cool.
so good.
It scared the bejesus out of me a couple of times. It's like, oh my god, it's chasing us! Run, run! And she's like, yeah, it was fun. Yeah. So it's coming out when?
I don't know. It's said that it's sometime this year or early next year, so it is coming
Oh, okay.
at least. But
Okay.
if it's
Okay.
2025 and we're about to have another repeat of 2023 gaming, I'm gonna be a fucking broke bitch because I am supposed to have Resident Evil 9 in 2025.
You better start getting some money off
I
this
should. I
podcast, kid.
really should.
Yeah, you really should. Right now, we're just doing it for the hell of it. But hey,
Yeah.
somebody's got to do it. Anywho.
So before we
Okay.
get started and back into this hellhole, while we understand that some individuals
That's just putting it mildly. It's a hellhole.
mildly.
It really is.
So, while we understand that some individuals listen for the entertainment aspect of true crime, it's important to remember that these are real people with families and friends who may still be suffering from their loss. These stories are not meant to cause further emotional damage to those involved, and we remind you to please be respectful and do not dox or contact those involved with cases. The case discussed on this podcast today may be disturbing for some listeners, and listener discretion is advised. So, trigger warnings. You want to give us trigger warnings, Mom?
We had cannibalism, we had torture, we had sexual torture, we had hello Thackeray, we had abuse. I'm just going with pretty much if you don't want to hear nasty shit, don't listen to it
It's the
because
Christmas tree of
yeah,
hell.
yes it is. Now here I had a question for you.
Hmm.
Are there any Bathory descendants?
There are actually. There's a whole family of Bathory descendants over in Hungary still.
And they have like on nothing on it?
They've talked a little bit. There's a blog with one family member claiming to be a Bathory descendant, but I'm not entirely sure if it's accurate. Otherwise, there is an individual that talked with the Discovery Channel and History Network regarding Elizabeth Bathory and some of the rumors surrounding her and these claims.
Yeah, because some of the stuff I had seen prior to hearing all of this, to me it sounded more like she was a, I don't know if the political you want to. It wasn't necessarily Yeah, well, it was politics, I guess, at the day, but I think she was. It was more of. They made it out to sound like she was a pawn in the politics game between the king and anybody else who wanted to inherit stuff.
So we'll get to that here in a moment. Mainly at the
Okay,
end of this
cool.
episode. I shouldn't say in a moment. It'll be at the end of this episode.
We'll be there
We'll be
shortly.
there shortly. But anyways, where we left off last time was that Janos would come into the Hungarian villages surrounding the castle, and peasant families would hide their daughters. Especially if you were a young, presumably virgin female, Janos would lure girls in with the promise of servitude and a better life under the noble woman.
You kind of got to go, wait a minute. We've heard stories, we've seen bodies. I'm going to go with a hard no on that. I don't think that was necessarily luring. I think it was more or less capturing them and taking them because they were just a basically stock.
Yeah. So, however, the girls that did go with Janos back to Castle Cachtice never returned.
See?
There were also reports that if Elizabeth was alone on one of these carriage rides down or had decided to come down with Janos into town and felt the urge to commit a torturous act while on this ride, her servants would actually help her facilitate the action right there in the carriage.
Jesus. That had to be smelling real good.
You know it.
Oh, I'm going. They didn't bathe frequently.
They didn't bathe
And then
frequently.
add body fluids to it.
And then
And
add
all other
burning of
matter.
flesh and
Yeah.
other things going on. However, you got to remember that not bathing frequently, like in the Middle Ages, like it obviously there's going to be some body odor, but you're pretty much fucking nose blind to that shit after a while cuz you don't fucking smell great either.
Yeah, you'd have to be to jump in that hell ride.
Mhm.
Good God, the Deathmobile.
Now, people are obviously taking note that when girls go off with Elizabeth and her servants, they're not coming back. However, speaking out against nobility could get a peasant into trouble.
Oh yeah.
So,
Trouble.
trouble or killed. So, while they talked amongst their own trusted comrades and friends down in the villages, they held their tongues about the goings on up in the castle.
Oh man.
German anthropologist Michael Wagner made note of how unhappy girls were usually lured to the castle themselves, and they were promised the idea of service there and education, after which, being let into the chambers or the castle, they would be locked in the cellar.
Mm-hmm.
Now, within the cellar walls, they would be beaten until their bodies were swollen, which only left Elizabeth seeking out a fresh change of clothes as hers dripped with blood of her new renowned cruelties.
Mm.
So, there's our first change of the day for Miss Elizabeth is when she brings her new victims in, beats them black and blue, and decides, I can't wear this anymore. So there's the first of 6 changes throughout the day.
You've got red on you.
You got red on you.
Mm-hmm.
So the swollen bodies were then cut with razors, and on occasions, the girls would be burned and then cut up.
Oh, good God.
However, a majority of the young women were simply beaten to death.
Woman has some serious anger issues.
Oh, absolutely. So, with the option of peasant girls starting to run out, Elizabeth then sent her bloodthirsty sights to lesser aristocrats. This is where she fucked up.
Well, yeah.
Eager to extend her reach for the thrill and see what she could get away with, she offered a school to teach social graces to young women of noble families. When
It's not going to end well.
when the ladies arrived at the castle, Elizabeth had her pick. And in 1609, after the murder of one such lady, which she tried to cover as being a staged suicide,
Mm-hmm.
and then another, which had died from natural causes,
Oh, because, yeah, beaten to death is a cause.
authorities decided to finally act. Additionally, those public accusations that were made by Lutheran minister Istvan Megari finally gained some attention by King Matthias II of Hungary.
I was going to say, is he any relation to the Bathories?
Not that I was seeing, no.
Okay, so then he would have no compunctions on
Hmm.
acting against them,
So,
because then he could seize her land.
in response, King Matthias II assigned Yorhi Thurzo, the individual who had received the letter from Francis de Nadasti,
Hmm.
along with 2 Noriades, Andreas Christarsens and Moses Kiyosaki, to investigate and collect evidence in March of 1610. Now, prior to Yorhi going to obtain this evidence, there was reportedly a debate about the possible criminal proceedings being held against Elizabeth. Now, prior to Yorhi going to obtain this evidence, it's reported that he debated the proceedings of a possible crime held against Elizabeth. Yorhi questioned how this may affect her son Paul and her 2 son in laws, who by accounts were friends of Yorhi's or even descendants of his.
Okay.
A trial and execution would cause a public scandal and cast disgrace upon the noble family, which at the time was ruling Transylvania.
Right.
Then there was the fact that her strategic property could also possibly be seized by the crown.
That's what I was figuring is going to be happening. 'Cause they're like, oh, here's our opportunity.
Originally, there were plans to sneak Elizabeth to a nunnery, but as news of the murders of less nobility spread, it was agreed that she should be kept under strict house arrest until further punishment or proceedings can be decided, and just basically try to avoid anything happening.
Could you imagine turning her loose in a nunnery?
Oh my god.
Oh my God. I'm just sitting here going, she could wipe out entire convents.
Mhm.
because she would not be unfettered.
Oh,
Being
absolutely.
the aristocrat that she is, she would, other than Mother Superior, nobody could gainsay her. Wow.
So it was also determined at this time that King Matthias II would not have to pay a large amount of debt that he owed to the Bathories at this time, which is lucky for him because he lacked sufficient funds to do so anyway.
Well, I'm thinking he pretty much said that he could excuse himself because that's kind of what they did. And the
Hmm.
nobles looked the other way because, then they'd ask for a favor later on from him. And if he didn't want to grant it, they'd come back and say, hey, you owed us some money and we looked the other way. So, yeah. He's going,
I get to keep my jewels and my crown.
I'm going to get another little piece of Pennsylvania, and I'm going to get a little piece of this. Yeah, we know which way his wind was blowing.
Yeah. So, additionally, during this time, Elizabeth and Yorhi had a sit down conversation regarding the accusations over a cup of tea. During this, Elizabeth told him a rather unconvincing story of how one of the finishing girls at her school murdered all of the other ones because she was greedy for
Oh,
her jewels.
okay.
I'm
Let's
like,
pass the blame off. But you think about it, nobody's going to gainsay her on that one because she's the head of the household. She is the ruler of that area. You don't want to cross her because you're going to get worse than what the girl that committed suicide did.
yeah. So
Yeah.
at this point, Elizabeth is probably pretty aware that she's living on borrowed time
Yeah, you'd think, but probably not
because while she can't be prosecuted for murder of a peasant, she sure as hell can be for the murder of a noble.
for the aristocrat. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So a party of men was sent to the massive Castle Cachtice on the 29th of December, 1610, at around 7 o'clock p.m. There were some groups within the village, but the one party that we're concerned with is taking the forest road to the castle.
Okay.
From here, they stood hidden in the trees, observing the castle from a distance, taking note of one or two watchmen that patrolled the courtyard and tugged on the leashes of the great white native dogs, Commodores, or Kuvasa, both of which guarded the house. Inside the manor, attendants were being served the evening meal, to which the lady of the house and her small group of companions were seated along a long dining room table. Now, it's speculated that perhaps the guards were tipped off to what was about to happen or ordered to keep silent at sword point. Regardless, though, soldiers came bursting through the heavy wooden doors and erupted into the building, running down corridors into all halls, chambers, annexes, and hustling shocked servants together. Once the building was secured, a handful of Elizabeth's retainers were hauled away for questioning while she herself was taken out of the house under armed escort.
Ooh.
The official records state that she was taken instantly up to the High Castle, but at the turn of the 20th century, the local people would still insist and point to a long, low barn like house, which they said she was brought to and confined in overnight.
Okay.
The servants who were singled out were removed from earshot of one another, shut somewhere in the exterior cellars or outer buildings of the castle, where they were put to torture by their captors for confession.
Yeah, at this point, I'd probably much go, you don't have to torture me, dude. I'm just going to fess it all up to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be easier than living with that fucking hellion.
The servants denied their culpability in the murders, but did admit to burying multiple victims. Their numbers totaled in a range of victims between 36 to 51 total.
Holy shit in a shingle. She was busy.
You have no idea.
I was going to say, and that's just the ones that they can count.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm pretty sure she probably used different ones for different things, too.
In addition to this, they shifted blame regularly between their mistress Elizabeth and the more recently deceased servant, Anna Darvulia, who served as the maid and governess of the estate from 1601 to 1609, and she died of a stroke inside the home.
Damn. Kind of hoping she got tortured herself, but oh well.
Nope. In return, though, when Elizabeth was questioned by Yorhi, she laid blame to her servants, claiming she allowed them to do such things because she herself was terrified of them.
Oh, right.
Bonfires were lit, and soldiers began to dig at the frozen earth of the manor grounds. Sometime in the next morning, a well preserved corpse of a young woman was found. Traces of soil which she had been exhumed from, as well as lacerations and bruising, were found on her blue white skin.
Ooh.
There were other blemishes that may have been possibly made by burns, and there were marks on her wrist that appeared to have been made with a rope.
Ooh.
In addition to the first girl, they found another one who was still alive but suffering from her injuries. She had deep wounds starting from the top of her back and extending down to her buttocks.
Well, I think that's going to be their person that they go, who did this to you? And she's going to
Mm-hmm.
out. Yeah.
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 So Elizabeth at this point was put under house arrest, and King Matthias II requested that she be sentenced to death, to which Yorhi convinced him not to do that, as it would affect the other nobles in the area, which, if you remember correctly, this area is run by the Bathory clan. So maybe
That's
we
right.
don't fucking poke the hornet's nest.
Exactly. They're going to kind of go, okay, she's crazy, but we'll keep her alive because she's family and she owns all this land. But then again, they may want the land, so they may want her dead.
Now, here's a little interesting bit. Elizabeth wanted to be put on trial because she believed if she pled her case in person, she could be absolved of the crime herself. To which I'm like, okay, Ted Bundy, you have fun with that.
I was going to say, I've heard that story before too.
So, Yorhi isn't going to let her have her day in court. And when she demanded and threatened him with Gabor Bathory as a dire consequence to his illegal actions, Yorhi responded furiously with, "You, Elizabeth, are like a wild animal. You do not deserve to breathe the air on earth or see the light of the Lord. You shall disappear from this world and shall never reappear in it again."
Ooh.
I'm like, God damn, that's fucking cold.
But it's not accurate, but it's like it's warranted.
Ooh. Now, some speculate that this was Yorhi's way of trying to fulfill a promise that he had made to Frances to spare her and help her, or spare his children of shame of a public trial and execution of their own mother.
Yeah. Frances probably gave Yorhi the 411 that she had a little bit of this taste for this, if not more so.
More likely, though, Yorhi was protecting himself. The trial of someone such as Elizabeth Bathory's status would have set a new precedent that Yorhi would have liked to avoid. It would open the floodgates, allowing the monarchy to dispose of inconvenient noblemen.
Well, they get around to it, but yes, I can understand that.
So, once again, don't poke the hornet's nest.
Yeah. Like, just keep her quiet. I'll watch her. I'll take care of her. And, yo, you've done that. Let's see something different.
Elizabeth's trial at this point is postponed indefinitely. However, the accomplices of Elizabeth's were brought to court. The defendants tried were Dorothea Sentis, Elena Yo, Katerina Bianca, and Janos Ivario. Janos claimed in his testimony that he had been taken into the work by Elizabeth forcibly, and he was not sure how many women he helped to kill, but he did know that the count of girls had to be somewhere around 37.
That's strangely accurate.
Most of which were buried in clandestine graves, some being in the castle's gardens and others being in the church, as well as other outbuildings around the property. Janusz also claimed that the girls that were lured did not go willingly. They were usually beaten into unconsciousness and then carried off.
Ha! Told ya.
When asked about the type of torture that the girls endured, he mentioned that they were tied with Venice cord around their hands and arms. From there, they were beaten until the whole body was as black as charcoal, their skin torn and rent. He recalled that there was one girl who suffered more than 200 blows before dying.
Holy shitballs.
Janusz also recalled one of the other servants, Dorko, cutting the fingers off one by one with shears, and then slicing the veins of a young girl with scissors.
Good Lord.
Elena testified and admitted that she had killed about 50 young women, stating that she had applied red pokers from the fire, shoving them into their mouths, and in other instances, up their nose.
Ooh.
She also testified that Elizabeth, at one time, had put her fingers into a girl's mouth and pulled as hard as she could until the sides split open.
Good God almighty.
Elena also testifies that Elizabeth stabbed them all over with needles, making them bleed, tore open the flesh with sharp pincers, and she personally liked to cut the skin between the fingers.
Just cruel. God almighty, I can only imagine that. You get a paper cut there. Fuck, that hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Having it intentionally snipped. Ah!
I have a thing about hands, so when I read that, I literally walked around just like flexing my hands for a while. I'm like, God damn, I hate this.
I'm like, oh God, I can remember getting paper cuts there, and that freaking hurts so bad. Oh, sweet Jesus. That's one I hadn't heard of, but okay.
So there was also recalling that Elizabeth placed oil paper between the girl's legs and then lit it on fire or used candles to burn the sensitive skin. Elena does go as far as to state that when Elizabeth was sick or ill and in bed, it didn't stop her either.
Mm-mm.
Girls were simply brought to her chambers where she would slap and bite at them. More often than not, there were cinders placed around the Countess's bed to help absorb the amount of blood that would be left over from these torture sessions.
Good God.
She notes that the bodies were then buried in a secret location, and sometimes they would chant over them.
My brain just goes, why? Other than she's just that fucked up.
So, testimony from the third accused, I'm presuming that this is
Katerina or whatever her name was.
Well, it could be Katerina, it could be more of Elena, or it could be Dorothea.
Okay.
So I'm presuming it's Dorothea. She added that Elizabeth liked to apply red hot irons to the soles of the girl's feet. She also claimed that Elizabeth had sexual relations with the devil himself and was completely under his spell.
It's the only plausible excuse I could hear.
So this individual also recounted that girls were reportedly fattened up during their imprisonment in the Cachtice dungeons, as Elizabeth believed it would increase the volume of blood in the body, which blood was a crucial ingredient for moonlit sorcery. So you can see there's still occult things going on.
Yep.
Additionally, it was pointed out by Elena that the servants were not the only ones sending girls to Elizabeth. Apparently, older women in the village would send off younger females in hoping of getting into the good graces of Elizabeth, or even possibly into her inner circle.
I'm some sick bitches.
I'm like, I don't think you want to be in her fucking inner circle, man.
I was gonna say that is the last circle I want to be in. That's like the 7 circles of hell, as far as I'm concerned.
There's testimony discussing how these young women were often forced into deviant sexual activities with Elizabeth, during which, if they acted with displeasure or she was displeased by them, she'd torture them and most likely kill them as a result.
I'm thinking that's probably a way to go, though. It's like, just kill me. I don't want to do this anymore.
Then those who did please her enough would stay for a while, but eventually she would bore of them and she dispatched of them as well. However, depending on the girl, if they were a favorite at the time, sometimes they received a worse form of treatment. And it's not disclosed what the fuck happened to them.
I was gonna say, do I really want to know? Because what can be? I'm sure there's other worse things, but still, it's like, yeah.
So there's a couple different sources that listed off an incident where Elizabeth forced a girl to strip a piece of flesh from her own arm, in which it was cooked either by the girl or another servant and given back to the girl to eat.
Yeah, you heard that, Zach. I can't do that. That's just, yeah.
Then there's 2 girls that were tortured by Elizabeth prior to Catelyn's wedding. There was a witness that came forward and gave testimony about seeing these two girls being buried. Their bodies were bruised and covered with welts, citing that there was no way the two had possibly died from natural causes. There was also testimony from one of the other servants that had actually refused to join Elizabeth's inner ring. She was reportedly beaten and remained bedridden for some time, after which she became involved with the disposal of bodies alongside Katerina.
Also, if you were her friend, you could help shuttle the dead ones off.
Yeah, but you refused me first, so I'm gonna beat the shit out of you, so you know your
Yeah,
place.
exactly. Wow.
She told in her testimony how Anna was the most adept at devising torture methods and plans for young girls. Dorothea was the one who supplied the largest amount of girls to Elizabeth. Elena was the most ruthless of the accomplices with dealing out punishment.
Wow.
This servant did, however, note of how Katerina was telling the truth in her testimony of only being involved with the disposal of the bodies. So she backed her up.
Okay, so did they go lightly on her or just lop her off and send her off?
So the accounts of Elizabeth's depravity grew more gruesome by the day, and more
Mm,
people added their own tales and stories to the mix. However, when it
wow.
was finally done, Elena, Dorothea, and Janos were sentenced to death. The total death count was put somewhere between 80 and 300 girls at this time.
Holy jumped up Palomina. Jesus.
Dorothea and Elena both had their fingernails ripped out before they were thrown into the fire, while Janos, who was deemed less guilty, was beheaded before being thrown into the flames as well. A public scaffolding was erected near the castle to show the public the justice had been done.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure the rest of the families are going, what about the main bitch, man? Let's do her.
Katerina herself was sentenced to life imprisonment as she acted under domination of other women, and she
Hmm.
implied in her recorded testimony that she didn't want to do this. Although, at some point during her imprisonment, she was released. After that, there's no telling what happened to her. Most likely, and
Yeah.
what I would do is fucking run, change my name,
Run for the
go
hills.
somewhere else.
Run for the hills. Run for your life. Yeah. Get the hell out of there.
During this time, a local Cachtice forest witch, one Iresia Majorvia, was implicated in abetting the Countess in an attempt to kill King Matthias II and Yorhi Thurzio with magic. So,
Ooh.
Yorhi had her burnt, to which there is reports of a servant that refused to testify against Elizabeth during this trial, and I'm presuming that this is Iresia. As a result, her eyes were put out and breasts removed before she burned at the stake.
Ow. Ow. Not saying she didn't deserve it, just saying ow.
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 There are also rumors of other nobles acting as procurers for Elizabeth, similar to those older women in the village. But neither them nor the Countess's daughter, Catelyn, were ever brought to trial, and their possible involvement seemed to just kind of shift into the dark.
Yeah, let's just keep that quiet and we'll continue on with our merry way. Yeah.
So after these executions were brought through, Yorhi continued to investigate the Countess, encountering one witness that stated Bathory herself had listed nearly 650 victims in total in her papers and diaries. 650.
Well, at this point, and if she could read and write and all that, you
Mhm.
would figure just as depraved as her fucking brain is, she probably is keeping a tally of this.
Oh, absolutely.
Just to stroke her ego and to refresh her on a cold winter's night type
And
of
you
thing.
have to think if she's a noblewoman, let's say, and she's living in a castle, and you're basically allowed to do whatever you fucking want to peasants at that time,
Oh, yeah.
she could be doing 1 to 2 girls a day. If you think about it, she was rumored to have started in 1578 when her husband left for war. However, there is documentation that her and him Both were committing torturous acts after their marriage in 1575. So if you
Yep.
think about it, she's killing 1 to 2 girls a day. There's more than 650 because there's 365 days a year.
Right.
So
That's just 1 year if she's doing twice a day.
yeah,
So
that's
yeah.
just 1 year if she's doing 2 a day. Now she's spreading them out a little bit more. I would not be surprised if 650 is a close number to it. However,
I wouldn't be surprised if there's way
I
more.
wouldn't be surprised if there's more.
Yeah, because a lot of people, y- you didn't have an actual record of people's births back
Hmm.
then unless you were a noble.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And mind you, these girls that are being killed are between the ages of like 10 and like in their mid to early 20s, like 18 to 20 years old.
If that.
If at that.
Yeah.
They're children.
Well, yeah, because children married at that age
Hmm.
too. So,
I'm like, they are babies.
I did have a question. I remember reading and hearing about her bathing in the blood. Where does that fit into this?
You know, you got to really stop skipping ahead of me. So,
Okay, I'll wait for you.
okay.
I'll catch up.
Unfortunately, most of Elizabeth's personal writings were destroyed before she could ever reach her trial. Then anything left from that time period had to be translated from 16th century Hungarian, which, if you don't know, doesn't always come through quite as clearly as we would hope.
Well, yeah, obviously, but yeah.
Yorhi gathered over 289 witnesses and their statements in total against Elizabeth for her crimes, most of which offered rumors and hearsay rather than factual information. In September of 1610, Elizabeth made her will, which documented the bequeathment of everything that she owned to her surviving children, Anna, Catelyn, and Paul. The only thing that Elizabeth wanted was her wedding dress, which she intended to wear until her death. So, with the will, this meant that if she were to go to court or be found guilty, the Bathory Nadasti holdings would avoid confiscation by the crown. She most likely hoped that this would satisfy her son in laws, who were plotting with Yorhi to have her put away so that they could take over the administrations of her estates and holdings.
Hmm.
Elizabeth herself was never put on trial and instead was isolated from humanity. Yorhi ordered Elizabeth to be bricked into a windowless room in Cachtice with a small space left to allow passage of items to and from the chamber. So he wasn't kidding when he was like, "You're never going to see the light of day again."
Literally. Oh my god. And once again, here comes my sense of smell going.
So Catelyn would visit from time to time. She would bring candles, ink, and parchment for her mother. Hjorhi's wife would visit the castle and steal Elizabeth's jewelry.
Hmm.
But other than a singular guard, Elizabeth was ultimately alone.
I kind of think that's pretty fucking fitting.
On August 20th of 1614, Elizabeth complained to her guard that her hands were cold. He replied with, "It's nothing, mistress. Just go lie down." She went to sleep and was found dead the next morning of August 21st of 1614. There were reportedly several plates of untouched food in the room.
So they did have access to the room. She just did not have access outside of the room.
Well, I'm presuming once she stopped responding and answering regularly, they went, "Oh shit, something's wrong." And they started to pull apart the bricking or whatever they did to keep her in there.
Oh, okay.
She was initially buried in a crypt on her estate, but her body was likely moved afterwards. To her dying day, she proclaimed her innocence and never confessed to any of the murders. Now, one theory to explain her actions was that she did it all for chasing eternal youth and beauty. This first account was published in 1760 by a priest Jesuit scholar named Lazario Chirosi, titled Tragica Historia, who claimed that Elizabeth bathed in the blood of young virgin girls, which apparently kept her skin youthful. However, historians today do agree that Elizabeth did not actually bathe in blood. It's more likely that she became spattered coated with her acts, but if she was going to use the blood to maintain her natural beauty in some form, it would likely be used as a facial solution, similar to how we use skincare oils nowadays.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't when she was suffering from epilepsy, they used that
Hmm.
on her, so.
I
she's just
imagine she
fallen back
would
on
probably be doing some of that because epilepsy isn't something that's like, "Oh, it's here and then it's gone." It's there. She's still dealing
That's what
with
I
it.
was wondering too. Is there any accounts of her dealing with it as an adult, or was it something that she basically outgrew as a child type of thing?
I'm not entirely sure. I'm presuming it's something that she dealt with her whole life because that's usually how epileptic seizures work.
Well, yeah. Well, that could explain some of the crankiness from her ass.
Hmm. This story, written in 1760, started the legend of Elizabeth and the beginning theories and speculations surrounding the Blood Countess or Countess Dracula. While Elizabeth may not have bathed in the blood of her victims, like what's being depicted in more recent media, she did torture young girls in excruciating ways, which could be considered worse, simply
Right.
because it made her feel better.
Don't know if she was coping with a sense of superiority or retaliation for her not being as pretty as she thought she was, or
I don't know. It could be a
just
mixture of
pure
things.
hatred.
It really could.
Yeah. Yeah.
In an analysis by Kimberly L. Crafts of Elizabeth, she suggests that the murders were motivated by pent up rage and stress. She became more motivated to commit torturous acts during periods where she felt particularly under pressure. So while Frances is away, while she's raising children by herself, she's trying to just kind of put herself together. She's stressed the fuck out because she's running something that she is not educated to do so.
Well, she was educated for it, but I wouldn't say it was a lack of education. It was maybe a lack of skill in
Possibly.
executing that.
And she's a
Yeah.
perfectionist, which
Yeah.
I
And
can
if
tell
she's
you
seen
as a
some sort of,
perfectionist myself that if something gets messed up, I'm stressed out.
well, I was going to say, and if she sees it as a failure to herself, she doesn't want to punish herself. So she punishes
Hmm.
somebody else because, how dare I?
So there's also the serial killer modus operandi, which means the operation in which something is done. It's a learned
Hmm.
behavior that can change with offenders as they gain experience or confidence in their crimes. So Elizabeth seems to me like someone that takes sexual pleasure in the torture of these young girls, which points to sadism, sadomasochistic,
Hmm.
which would honestly fit the role of more male 21st century based serial killers in the hedonistic serial killer category, which is broken down into three subcategories of lust killers who derive pure sexual motivation and pleasure from their killings, the thrill killers who commit a murder and go through great efforts to clean up the scene to avoid being detected or derive some form of satisfaction by inflicting pain upon their victims, and that thrill may even continue after the victim's death. Then there's the comfort killers who do so for material gain or to derive other satisfactions from their murders, usually and carefully selecting their victims as compared to just selecting a random individual. So there's a theory that Elizabeth wasn't committing torture and she was actually helping with medical aid of women in her castle. If you know, most medicine women and midwife healers were more commonly referred to in this time period as witches.
That's witches. Yep.
If you know your history during this time, there's a shit ton of diseases going around, including the Black Death, bubonic plague. In a scholarly article written in 2014, there's details regarding a Croatian midwife healer coming to Elizabeth's castle in 1601,
Okay.
one Anna Dervilia, who brought with her a healing culture that people at the time would have been completely alienated to, and the local populace would have been a little scared of.
Cupping or something like that.
Anna apparently specialized in surgical intervention, which required a range of different techniques such as bloodletting,
Hmm.
to which, to an untrained eye, may seem like torture. However, it's theorized that Yorhi may have either not understood the practice or used the lack of understanding of others to his advantage to launch a smear campaign against Elizabeth.
See, and I heard that too.
Yorhi was known to play both sides of opposing teams, writing letters to his wife regarding securing allies, which he didn't intend to follow through with during the war. So he was basically like, "Oh, Ottoman Empire, just don't take my land and don't do this, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you. I'll get you in here."
I'll help you. I'll give you all the information you need. Yeah.
Mhm. And meanwhile, he's also on the king's hip like, "Don't worry about it, sire. You're fine."
I've g- I've got a hold of this. I'll do right by you. Yeah, there's always those that play the fence.
So, as long as he was safe and his assets were secure, Yorhi had no remorse for playing anyone who he came across in his path. What was to stop him from turning against Elizabeth and attempting to bring
Exactly.
her out of her very powerful seat?
And see, that's what I wondered about too.
Yeah. Then there was also the idea that Elizabeth was possibly the victim of a cultural or religious conflict. She was practicing what some would deem as witchcraft,
Witchcraft.
terrifying villagers that thought that they would be met with divine punishment as a result of her practice. Although she was raised as a Calvinistic Protestant, she may have been religiously targeted by the Lutheran faith out of fear of becoming too powerful, making sense as to why the Lutheran priest or
Mm-hmm.
minister was trying to get word in that she's not doing stuff right. She's being blah, 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 A, B, C,
Yep.
D, E, F, G. Now, there's also testimonies that the Countess herself was not even present during some of these medical procedures or tortures because she would have been frequently traveling between other castles and estates, handling her husband's assets. There's also documentation that due to her education in multiple languages, she would actually help with liaisons between opposing sides or people that couldn't really communicate strongly with
Mm-hmm.
Francis Nadasti. So she sometimes was out there with him, like fucking just being a translator
Yeah.
because he didn't have that education that she had.
That's what I said. There's got to be multiple stories, multiple angles, because you only hear one side of it, and it's the bad side.
Oh, absolutely. Because that's
And I
what
heard,
media plays up every time.
yeah.
Because we have how
And see,
many
and I had
movies
heard,
that involve Elizabeth Bathory nowadays? How many shows? How many songs?
yeah. And see, and I had watched some show, I can't remember what it was, but they were like, she was portrayed as this, but then here come this other side that said, no, it was all political. The family wanted, after the husband passed, the family wanted the holdings, and they thought it was rightfully theirs because it should not pass down to a woman at that day and age,
Hmm.
understandably. But she was still strong, and she had the backing of her immediate family that said, no, we want her to stay in control of this. But when they're over here going, yeah, we're going to keep her in control so we can fuck her up and take her stuff too. So
Hmm.
it was multiple things. Then he had the king that came in and was like, I want that shit.
Well, you
That
also
should be
have to
mine.
think that Gabor Bathory is running a
Hmm.
campaign against King Matthias II. He's
Exactly.
planning to take
So,
his crown, and there is some documentation that Elizabeth may have been providing funds to Gabor for his campaign.
hmm,
However, it's not
yeah,
fully stated if that was happening, but it was noted that she was in correspondence with him. So, what
yeah,
better way to hurt his campaign into bigger Hungary or even Poland than to take out his main player and his main financial support.
yeah, exactly. So we can say that and she may be completely innocent of everything that was brought up in the very beginning.
Mhm.
We don't know. We weren't there. You can't see it. That's why I say my superpower, honest to God, I would love to be able to go turn back time and go stand in some spot and be able to see exactly what happened, not interact, and then come back and go, I saw what it was. I know the answer. I would
I
love that.
would fucking love that. That would be great.
That is like, that would be, everybody goes, what would you want? You want to be able to fly? No, I want to be able to turn time and go back
Mhm.
or forward, but only from where you're standing at in that point in time. So I'd have to literally go over to Hungary, find her castle, and then go. But that would be a cool superpower.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But as you stated to this day, the case of Elizabeth Bathory still inspires intense debate and historical examination as there's questions as to what really happened.
Oh, yeah. There always will be.
And there always will be.
But like you say, you just sit there and go, oh my God, she was so horrible. She was so horrible. And then you go, but maybe she wasn't. Maybe this was all fucking rumor. She was a healer and they
Hmm.
saw it as divine torture because at the time they used, like you say, bloodletting. Oh my God, they used to leech, cup. slice open fucking veins and let it out in ill humors, all that kind of stuff. So, hell, even washing your hands back there before doing any type of medical procedure would have been seen as witchcraft.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah.
just for like
Um,
side notes, like I have a medical book from the 1800s, which I got for my graduation, which was like the coolest fucking thing I think I've ever gotten. Thank you, Mama Laura.
mhm.
Some of the practices in there really just make you go, oh my fucking God, you did this to people? What the hell? I
Mhm.
can't imagine what a medical book from like the 16th century would look like.
Well, they wouldn't have had a book. It
They
would have
didn't,
all been teachings
it
from
would be
passing.
teaching from passing on. There is
Yeah.
documentation that there were books at that time. However, it was
Oh,
like
yeah.
a very secret society type of thing because, as you
Well,
know,
because
medical practices weren't really smiled upon back then. It was like,
no. And if you were a woman doing it, it was even worse because a woman, how dare she?
what
Yeah.
does a woman know?
What does a woman know? Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. But yeah. So, yeah, you could literally say she was horrific, but was she?
exactly. And the world will never know.
For somebody to be that horrifically nasty, it seems out of my concept. So I side on the side of she was a political pawn
Hmm.
trying to do good and was framed.
Thank you again for listening to Spattered. Please make sure to follow the show on Facebook and Instagram at Spattered Podcast and on X at Spattered Pod. If you're enjoying the show, make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts from. If you're watching on YouTube, like this video, subscribe, and ring the notification bell to be notified when the show goes live or drops a video. As always, if you have a case request, any questions, or are interested in sponsoring the show, please email me at spatteredpodcast@gmail.com. Spattered is a true crime podcast hosted by Caitlin Gardner and Sarah Ray. The research and edits for this episode were done by Caitlin Gardner. All the music for the show was done by Lucio Cardenas. We'll see you next time. Stay safe out there. And remember, the truth is always in the blood.